Welcome to another fake news dumpster fire. I've labeled other videos in the series Propaganda Masterclass, but in today's examples, NPR shows no mastery and no class. It's all baseless smear. We start with this bombastic headline. This right-wing conspiracy theory about eating bugs is about as racist as you think. And who are these evil right-wing conspiracy theory racists? Farmers. Working class people who put food on your table. NPR starts his radio show with a speech by politician Thierry Baudet to a group of Dutch farmers. Baudet pulls out a bag of mealworms to gross out the crowd, says the government will force people to eat bugs, and is instantly labeled a racist by NPR. Gene Demby, who runs NPR's Racism Beat, explains that there's been conspiracy theories about Jews trying to gain power. So Baudet's claim of government food choices is anti-Semitic racism. We've seen this tactic in part 1 of the series, where Mark Hay attacks critics of the Great Reset, and in parts 3 and 4, when Adrian Monk labels critics of the World Economic Forum as anti-Semitic. And none of them provided a shred of evidence that even one of the so-called conspiracy theorists had said anything about Jews, let alone attacked them. It's total fabrication. NPR avoids the real issue, drastic food cuts in the Netherlands, where the government is trying to close a third of its farms, kicking people from the land its families have farmed for generations or centuries, reduce livestock herds by up to 50%, and cut fertilizer use up to 70%, which will devastate yields and impoverish whoever is still allowed to farm. NPR should mention that the Netherlands is the number 2 food exporter in the world, meaning any production cuts will result in higher prices and food shortages in other countries. And that production creates jobs, wealth, and tax revenues. And without it, the whole country gets poorer, even the Jews, and the government has less money to fund pensions, schools, and hospitals. But Hao Jingyan says this is a good thing because high-emission farms get bought out. But nailing farmers doesn't help the environment. To avoid starvation, people in other countries will have to open up new farms to make up the difference. And what will you eat when cows are banned? Well, the Netherlands is already introducing school kids to insects.
Mealworm.
Baudet didn't invent a thing. NPR never defines right-wing, but it's always meant as an insult. I always thought right-wing meant you wanted lower taxes. But here right-wing means you support farm workers, independent business, and people who buy food. And yet again, we see the word shadowy. It's always a lie. The people they label as conspiracy theorists aren't imagining secret people. They're criticizing well-known leaders and official public policy. I will not eat the bugs became a meme on 4chan and emerged in conservative talk shows and political speech. But that doesn't mean it's a conspiracy theory or anti-Semitic. And we're going to have a good laugh when we answer NPR's question of why this bug issue has gained traction over the years. Here's NPR itself in 2008. Insects get a tasty makeover. NPR again. Maybe it's time to swap burgers for bugs, says UN. And the reason is the environment. NPR again. Insects may be the taste of the next generation. Pushing the UN Food and Agriculture Organization and the Man-Eating Bugs Cookbook. More NPR. These pictures might tempt you to eat bugs. Ooh, deep-fried tarantula. Yum. More NPR. The joys and ethics of insect eating. NPR again. 2015. Scorpion lollipops. This one says that international luminaries, like former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan and the Food and Agriculture Organization, are raving about bugs over meat. To NPR, it's a conspiracy theory to say global elites are pushing bugs. But international luminaries, oh, that's different. Honestly, big shots in the UN are the definition of global elites. Now, NPR's favorite scientist? A bug-eating festival to indoctrinate the kids? An NPR edible insect radio show? Oh, this one is intended for kids. NPR again? Oh, here's another one that links to an article saying that beef is bad for the planet. NPR again. NPR's green argument for eating cicadas, which again highlights United Nations advice. So there's NPR, a government-owned, government-funded institution, promoting eating bugs for 15 years. But anyone else talking about bugs is a Jew-hating conspiracy theorist. Outrageous! So hateful! If they're such hypocrites, let's give them the 7 hippo salute. And the article is such a crock, will award NPR 7 crocks as well. But NPR is relentless. Here's another NPR story, recycling the artwork in many of the themes of the last article. It insists on the conspiracy theory labels, even after admitting the European Union approved mealworms and crickets. Yes, the same European Union that's forcing farmers in Netherlands, France, and Ireland to seriously reduce cattle production. They have the mandatory shadowy global elite lie, and the lie that bug critics are complaining about a shadow government involving Jewish people, even counting Orthodox Jew Ben Shapiro in the list of people spreading this anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. And NPR says the conspiracy theory got an extra boost during the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos in July 2020, when Chairman Klaus Schwab announced an initiative called the Great Reset. Wrong. Their annual meeting was in January. July was when Schwab's book was published, so naturally people start complaining about the Great Reset after that. Like BBC did, NPR calls the Great Reset an initiative rather than a book, just to confuse their audience. Because if you know it's a book, you could read the part where Schwab whines that there weren't enough lockdowns and travel restrictions because there wasn't a central power to enforce them on all countries. Or when the book praises the European Commission for adopting extremist climate policies, like those food production cuts, showing that they didn't let the COVID-19 crisis go to waste. Here's another story with all the same lies about shadowy ruling elites and anti-Semitism. This version claims that all the prominent conservatives got their opinions about bugs because of an anonymous meme on 4chan. But there's no evidence any one of them even saw it. Some of their intended gotcha moments are funny. Tucker Carlson, eating insects is repulsive and un-American. Well, NPR, don't call him a liar until you take an opinion poll of Americans showing the opposite. Paul Joseph Watson, you know who won't be eating bugs? Climate change technocrats. Now, before NPR calls him a conspiracy theorist, they might want to do a fact check. Does Joe Biden eat bugs? John Kerry or Klaus Schwab? Bill Gates? How about Justin Trudeau? Or any of the authors of those UN reports? Again, the Great Reset is a conspiracy theory about a WEF initiative. No mention of the book or Klaus Schwab. Easy to deflect criticism of a book if you pretend it was never written. Schwab wants people to go all in on climate change. And though the book doesn't mention insects, anyone following the World Economic Forum website knows they're pushing bugs for their climate agenda. They've even made videos about adding grubs or crickets to flour. NPR dishonestly labels Aldo Buttazzoni a conspiracy theorist just for asking people their opinion on the matter. NPR also labels as conspiracy theorists anyone opposed to their climate narrative. Here's their climate solutions reporter, Julia Simon. Climate disinformation in the past, sometimes paid for by fossil fuel interests, often related to false ideas that global warming is a scam or that the threat is overblown. Those falsehoods are still around, but what we're seeing a lot more of these days are attacks on climate solutions, even if we don't always know who funds them. Think attacks on renewables. Let's start here. We don't always know who funds them. So NPR says there are secret financiers, must be rich people, with the power to influence the public, maybe multinational oil guys. In other words, shadowy global elites are conspiring to fund nefarious anti-climate schemes. Hilarious! NPR is inventing its own conspiracy theories. And NPR's government funding creates its own biases. Thousands of government jobs depend on people supporting the climate agenda. But NPR also gets donations. Alan McLeod reported that Bill Gates has given hundreds of millions of dollars to media outlets to promote his global agenda. And NPR got the biggest payout, over $24 million. Bill's book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, outlines all the technologies the world will need for net zero carbon. And Gates has investments in nearly all of them. including 40 startups. When NPR rallies its audience for the climate, Gates has an easier time selling his products like fake meat or getting government grants to research his next money-making schemes. NPR's hateful propaganda says you are incapable of thinking on your own if you say solar isn't a good climate solution because it won't work at night or when covered in snow. NPR says you're a conspiracy theorist funded by evil rich guys. To NPR, the threat of global warming is never overblown, so it would be disinformation to remind people of the UN statement in 1989 that we only had until 2000 to solve CO2, or Al Gore's prediction of a rapid 20-foot rise in sea level, or St. Greta's tweet that says we all should have died last June. Ho is back again with lies about the Great Reset conspiracy theory with the shadowy global Jewish elites. This version doesn't mention the Great Reset book, its author Klaus Schwab, or publisher WEF. It looks like David Folkenflick's job is to smear rival news outlets without any evidence, in the process insulting the millions of viewers who trust them rather than NPR. Funny to see Joe Rogan, a Bernie Sanders supporter, considered right-wing. NPR says Tucker Carlson made utterly unsubstantiated claims about dead whales. But if you click the blue type, you can see a fisheries expert substantiate the claims.
The only thing that has changed in the ocean is the surveying activities that have been going on for offshore wind farms, which are essentially carpet bombing the ocean floor with intense sound.
There's also a documentary by left-wing environmentalist Michael Schellenberger, which came out a month before the NPR article. Highly recommended. I'll put a link in the pinned comments and description sections so you can see it for free. Now here's a revealing opinion. In the end, it doesn't matter if 99% of the public believe in climate change. If you're able to embed real fear and seeds of doubt about the solutions that are on the table, you end up with the same outcome, which is no agenda, no policy, no action. What a crock. Joe Biden got 51% of the vote, but still managed to spend over $1 trillion on his green agenda. What kind of cult are you living in where you aren't happy with 99% of public support? They insist on 100% conformity. No tolerance for alternative views. No room to fear your policies could kill millions of people through starvation, make whales go extinct, or bankrupt governments. No doubts about their climate projections, the ability of their plan to succeed, or the leaders of their cause.
I'd probably have one of the highest greenhouse gas footprints of anyone on the planet.
NPR's conspiracy reporter also supports pre-bunking, which means accusing people of spreading misinformation before they do, so it's easier to attack them later. Is this news or psyops? These things have to appeal to the people you're trying to reach, I guess by playing on biases, not patronize them, and also acknowledge that known facts sometimes change as they have for COVID-19. I guess meaning that people with the facts that were labeled as conspiracy theorists have now been proven correct. And hopefully NPR will stop calling people Great Reset conspiracy theorists after someone there actually reads the book. Please check out other videos in the series. Check the description and pinned comments for a link to the whale video. And if you can, please support your local food bank.